Hey everyone, we are getting ready for week 2 on our Mixed Media Collage project. So I'm going to walk you through what we're going to look at this week and how to turn in your work. So let's get started. It's a 5-week project. Again, we are in week 2. We're going to include the slides on your Canvas assignment. So if you want to come back and look at this video, then it'll be here. We're going to talk about how to create your background, we're going to review the principles of design with you, how to start your collage image, and what to turn in for this week. Okay, so let's think about making backgrounds. We are not going to work directly on your support. We are going to create a paper background, some kind of collage background. So most of this project is going to be collage. So there's a couple of different options. You can use paper that you find that's not focused on images, that's more like background noise. So it can contain words if you want it to, but it shouldn't be too distracting or something that you're wanting to leave for later. You shouldn't, if it's words that you really like, you should wait and keep those for later on down the road and not put them on your background. Some suggestions would be like old books, newspaper, junk mail, recycled paper, old homework, receipts, notes, patterned paper like maybe scrapbooking paper, an old phone book, shredded paper from your paper shredder makes some really cool designs, tissue paper, old dress patterns, or sheet music. Those are some examples that you could possibly use. And if you look at these pictures, you can see they used a combination of different types of papers, like notebook paper here, a phone book. This looks like an old book, and this looks like maybe scrapbooking paper or tissue paper. But again, don't get too attached to it because you're going to be covering this up later. Another thing you could do is write or doodle using pencil, Sharpie, whatever you have. You could write and doodle on some other paper, and then you can tear that up and make it on your background. And if you see here on this right here, we've got a little video for you that just kind of demonstrates how to do that. It walks you through how to tear the paper. It is better to tear the paper than to just cut it straight if you can. Torn paper just sticks together better, and it also has a little bit more of an organic feel. It doesn't look so harsh and straight edged. So that just keep that in mind, that tearing the paper is generally a better idea. And here's some ones that people have gone in and started writing, and then we can layer on top of that. Okay. So, what should you know about good design before you start? We are going to review the principles of design. You're going to be asked to select a principle of design to kind of guide your overall image this week. So, let's go back through some of the principles and just talk about that. All right. So, the first one is balance. Just making your image look like it is balanced on each side. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. The one on the right is basically a symmetrical image. You see, if you cut it down the center, that it would be almost a mirror image on either side. That's totally fine if you want to do that. The one on the left is balanced. It's very symmetrical here, but each side is not the same. So we would call that an asymmetrical balance. And then radial balance, remember, radiates out from the center, kind of like a pinwheel. So any of those could be, if balance is your main principle you want to focus on, think about symmetrical, asymmetrical, or radial balance, which of those you want to use. Emphasis. Think about when you emphasize something, you make it stand out. So these are a couple of examples of how the artist created an area of emphasis. Maybe they used something that's brighter or larger, or maybe all the things are looking towards it. On this one, everything's kind of curved towards or looking towards this part right here. So that creates an emphasis. The next is movement. Movement is creating, making your viewer's eye go throughout the work. So some good ways you can create movement are through diagonal lines, which both of these use really nice diagonal lines. These lines that go back in space create movement, make you look to the back. And then also, this is a good diagonal line. Curves are also a good way to create movement. So you might have an S curve or objects that are in a curved alignment, and that's a good way to create movement as well. Unity is when you create a feeling of harmony between all the parts of the work. Um, Unity can be created by repetition. It can be created by using a color scheme that's harmonious. Not using every color in the rainbow, maybe, but just kind of paring down your color palette is a good way to create unity. Making things look like they're whole and they belong together. So even though there's a lot going on in both of these images, you can see that the artist did different things to create unity. They created the same shapes over and over. This has some similar shapes that are kind of coming out there. They've pared down the color palette. This one definitely has a lot of repeated shapes as well. Contrast is when you want something to pop, when you have a really light area and a really dark area next to each other. It can also be created by having a really smooth area up next to a rough area, or maybe something that's really large up next to something that's really small. There's different ways that you create contrast, but when you do create contrast, it really attracts the viewer's eye. Um, so it creates excitement and drama. This one has good contrast. That black and white is always a really great contrast. Bright red here. And then this one over here has contrasting colors. Orange and blue are opposite on the color wheel. Rhythm. Rhythm is kind of like pattern, except for it's not really as predictable as pattern is. It's something that's repeated in an organized way. So if you look over here, these flowers are spaced differently. They're different flowers, but they do create a rhythm around this girl. Over here, you've got these radiating lines that create a rhythm that come out from the center. On this, the aliens are actually equally spaced, so they create a pattern in the background, which is a little bit different than rhythm. Here's pattern. Pattern is when you repeat an object or a shape or a symbol over the work of art in a consistent manner. So you see that this artist has used patterns throughout their piece here. This one has got the stripe pattern. It looks like they probably used a stencil on this one to create some pattern, and here as well. Okay, so now that we've looked at the principles of design, here's just some advice for you. Design wins versus design fails. So if you have a winning design, everything looks like it has a purpose. Nothing random is just stuck there. Everything belongs. It's integrated into the design. Design fails, these have good starts over here on the right, but maybe they have too many colors, or there's no emphasis at all. For example, this one really doesn't have much of an emphasis. It just looks like random stuff stuck on the paper. There's no real clear object to it, so it looks like they could have taken a little bit more time to design their image. And then this one on the right has a really great start, but they just have some random things slapped on top. They didn't cut this out or tear the paper or integrate it into the design. It just looks like it was maybe an afterthought just stuck on top. So try to avoid that. All right, some helpful tips. Always test your media before you do it on your collage. So if you've got certain paint or markers, you want to test that out on some other surface first. Always work from the background first. We're going to work from the background, and then we're going to move up to the middle ground, and then you're going to put the foreground, the things that are closest to the viewer, last. Don't lose your emphasis, okay? This can get really busy if you're not careful. So think about the main idea, and if you're thinking about putting something else on there and it takes too much away from your main emphasis, maybe rethink your design a little bit. You should think and sketch and rearrange before you do anything permanent. And then we say push and pull. So basically what that means is you want to push the background back. You want it to not be the most dominant thing in the picture. And then you want the things in the foreground to really pop out at you. So there's some different ways you can do that. We'll cover some of that again next week as well. But just keep thinking that you want the background to be pushed far in the back. So if you watch the video that's in here, it shows you how to start layering your background and also how to make your background kind of fade out by using some white paint. And it also goes through and shows you how you can start kind of playing around with layering, gluing, and then going back on top and kind of making sure things are in the place that you want them to be. So your goal this week is to have the entire background covered and then begin on your next layers, which would be your background and your middle ground. You should be about halfway done with the entire project at the end of the week. We're going to have a midway critique next week, and then you'll finish it up following that. Okay, so this week you should be halfway done. This includes your background, no white paper or whatever you use for your background support. Nothing should be showing of that. You should have started layering in some of your collaged images. Always use really good craftsmanship in your cutting and gluing. And be sure to take a photo of your work in progress at the end. We need to see that you're about halfway done with your project. Crop it, good lighting, all the things that you know, and upload that to Canvas. So that's going to be what you submit this week, is that photo of your work in progress. And where do you turn it in? You turn it into Mixed Media Collage Halfway Progress. It's going to be due on April 26th. And if you're wondering about how you'll be graded for this progress photo, the rubric is on Canvas. Okay, have fun. Contact your teachers if you have any questions in this process, and we hope that you enjoy the process.